scientists.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Living Richly with Curo. This is episode number 62. And this episode is a continuation of last week's discussion with Sharon Pope, who is a certified master life coach, helping women in midlife get the tools they need to improve, heal, or release their struggling marriages. If you missed part one of this conversation, which is number 61, I highly recommend going back and listening to that first, and then coming back to this episode. But we are going to pick it right up where we left off. Yeah, so just the myths and misconceptions that you see women believe about relationships that is making marriages harder to sustain in sort of modern day. Or maybe this was always the case, but I think certainly now.
Oh no, I could go for an hour.
On and on.
But I was like, let me choose which one I want to talk about. So the biggest one that I want to talk about is related to, and this is a concept that Esther Perel, if you're familiar with her work, that she talks about. But if you think about marriage and love, what that looks like is safety, security, predictability, things that are known, and it feels like home. And it's a very comforting sort of thing that we can fall into inside of our relationships. However, because we're human beings, there's a whole other side, which is the desire side of the equation, which is really easy early on because we've got the dopamine hits flowing. We have testosterone surges, like hormonally, we are like lit up when we're falling. They literally, scientists they call it a brain state now, that when you're falling in love, it lights up the exact same brain centers as someone who's on cocaine or opioids. So the desire part is really easy early on. But then a few years in, if you don't pay attention to the desire part, if you don't cultivate that, it's just like a fire. If you don't stoke that fire, it's going to go out. And so desire needs new things, novelty. It needs things that are adventurous, maybe even a little risky. It needs spontaneous things to be happening. It needs that juice. And, some people are like, I need 60% desire and 40% love and home. And other people are like, nope, I need 90% love and home and I need 10% desire. And there's no right or wrong answer to it, but it sure is helpful to know like where you are and where your partner is. And you just don't want to take it to zero. And by the way, no one tells you this. Like no one says when you get married, if you don't pay attention to the desire side of the equation, that fire is going to go out. And you two are going to start becoming more and more and more disconnected from each other. And you're not really going to understand why. And then the bridge back feels like a really long journey. So keep it going, keep it alive, just keep stoking those fires. And we don't have to overthink this. Like we don't have to jump out of airplanes together. And we take a cooking class together once in a while or a dance class together. Like, can we just do new things instead of sitting in front of the TV together and calling that our time for connection?
Right. Yeah. And especially, my goodness, when children are introduced to the equation, holy cow. I mean, it changes everything. They are the most amazing things. I wouldn't change it for the world. And when they come in to the picture in terms of your relationship, like you're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, and it's so easy for the desire part of the equation to be the thing that gets dropped and the thing that you don't invest in and you don't pay attention to. So I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Yeah. It's funny. One of Esther Perel's quotes actually is about that, where she says, it's interesting that, children come from a place of where desire was created, and they will be the thing that will kill your desire quicker than anything else. I'm like, oh yeah. So we've got to be conscious about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. So funny.
So many of our listeners are successful, thoughtful women who feel the pressure to make it work. And that could be in their marriage or in their career or in their roles as moms. How do you help this kind of woman distinguish between what is just a small, short, rough pat in her relationship and when it has just run its course?
Yeah. So first of all, I think that particularly for women, we have been taught that if you work hard enough, you can make things happen. And that serves us really well in some ways. But it doesn't exactly hold true inside of relationships, because you can't make that happen. You can't force that, because we all have free will, and there's a whole nother person, a whole nother human being that's at the table here that you're interacting with and trying to create this thing with. I literally think that's one of the reasons why women get into relationships and think they can change their man. Because if we work hard enough and we try hard enough and we want it, it will happen, because we make things happen. Like, women, I think, are amazing. We make things happen in so many ways. But inside of our relationships, it doesn't always work that way. And I think, even when you say the word rough patch, oh, we're just in a rough patch, that makes me think of a very passive sort of approach to what's happening in the marriage. Like, oh, we're just in a rough patch. It'll go away. And I think that's the time to pay attention. Here's how I think about it. Do you guys you're in Virginia, yes?
Virginia and Maryland, DC
And
metro
Maryland,
area.
Maryland.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the side of the freeway, do they have those bumps or those grooves?
That
That,
wake you up if you're about to veer off
Yes.
course. Yes.
I call that the rumble strip.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're in what you might consider a rough patch or a place of disconnection, that is the rumble strip. And you know that if you just wake up and pay attention, you're going to get right back in your lane and you're going to be safe. But what happens if you ignore the rumble strip?
Yep.
You will
You're
crash.
under all guardrail.
Yes, bad things are happening.
Yeah.
And so in our marriages, sometimes we wait and we wait and we wait. The average person waits 6 years before they reach out for support. And by then we're in a ditch, or we've hit the guardrails, or, there's an affair, or like these things don't get magically better. They tend to get worse over time. And so the time to pay attention is when you're on the rumble strip, because the lift there to get you back on track is it's lighter. But most people don't. Human nature.
Right.
I love human beings. We're so interesting.
So fascinating. So much to give you, so much content to give you to ponder and do your work about.
It really does.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good segue into our next question about clarity. So your message with the women with whom you work is really all about getting clarity. So clarity on whether you kind of buckle down and try to make your marriage work, or whether you decide to leave, which the two are huge decisions to make. So what are some of the signs, aside from the rumble strips, that you encourage women to pay attention to when they're unsure about this decision? Do they stay or do they go?
Okay. I'm thinking of 3 different signs that you could pay attention to. The first is pay attention to actions more than words. Words are very easy. Actions are a whole different thing. And consistent action over the course of a long time. Because oftentimes what you're trying to do is create change in a marriage. And so the second piece is related to, is there some structure around this? Like, I always think about this from like human being or human nature perspective of why do people do what they do? And so I don't know about you ladies, but have you ever given up sugar?
Yes.
And then I don't know, 2 days later.
Yeah. Speaking of cocaine, sugar is as addictive.
All the things. So most of us can't just say, oh, from this day forward, I am never going to do this thing again. And then you never do it again. We are habitual creatures. So habits are really hard to break. And it takes some trial and error. And the more structure we have around creating a new habit, the more successful we're going to be. I often say this about personal trainers. It's like, no one hires a personal trainer because they don't know how to press the big green button on the treadmill, or they don't know how to go pick up a weight. It's like, no, I need someone pushing me beyond where I would go on my own. Right. And so first is pay attention to action over words. The other is have some structure. Like, I don't care if it's working with a coach or working with a therapist, or I'm going to read a relationship. Like, maybe we're going to do a book club together as a couple, and we're going to come together and talk about that book, a new one every month. But put some structure around it. It's one of the things that I teach inside my program is like, one of the first things is you should be having regular meetings with your spouse. Like, just like you two run a business, what if you, let's just imagine for a moment that you two never really talked about anything besides, hey, good weekend? Yeah, good. Yeah, good. We never talked about our clients. We never talked about profitability. We never talked about where we're headed. Like, didn't plan anything, didn't speak to each other
Can't even
about anything.
imagine.
Right.
Right.
Not even.
And
We
yet,
talked to one another multiple times throughout the
Yeah.
day.
right. So, and that's what makes you thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for some reason in our marriages, especially once kids come along, it's like logistics and kids, what's going on, who needs to be where. And we stop talking about us as a couple and how are we doing. And so the more structure you can add to that, it's going to serve you really well. And the third piece I would tell you is focus more on you than on him. So many times when women are discontent in their marriages, they want to focus on what he's doing, what he's not doing, what he has done, what he hasn't done, all those things. But all of that is really, for the most part, outside of your control, not outside of your influence, but outside of your control. And I do think that when you show up differently inside the relationship, that your partner now has a choice to make if they're going to keep showing up with the same energy or if they're going to adjust and evolve to it. Sort of like a tennis game, right? We just lob the ball back and forth. So the way you show up will dictate how your partner's going to show up. And there's probably a pattern there that's not so healthy. And then one of you gets mad, shuts down, you give each other the silent treatment for a few days, you walk away, nothing gets solved, no one feels heard, right? So we have to interrupt that pattern. So this is all about creating change. And so let's start where you have some control, which is yourself.
Love that. I
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
that
that
was
is-
something, yeah,
Uh-huh.
that you
And I was going to
really,
say that's a fantastic piece of advice.
for anything, for anyone really, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sharon, back to the idea of the like couples meeting. So we
Mhm.
all know that men generally love talking about their feelings. LOL.
It's their favorite thing to talk about.
Favorite thing. They just want to like know all about your deepest emotions. Bonus
Right.
points if we can cry together. That just is amazing. But like, so in all seriousness, how would you recommend that if somebody wanted to kind of present this idea of like, let's do a meeting or let's do a book club together, like how can you get your guy on board who may not be, like us, where we would love the idea of like sitting down and talking about our marriage or our relationship or our feelings? Like, what advice do you have for folks in that situation whose husbands or partners may not be so down with that?
I would for sure just use the example of imagine you're running a business and the owners and the people in charge of that business never talked about the business. How successful would that company be? And they'll get it. They'll immediately get it because if you put it in a work context, they really understand it. And so this is, for all intents and purposes, a business. It's the foundation of our family. And so we got to make that strong because everything we build on top of it is like kids and homes and investments and all those things. Like it's all built on this foundation. So we need to make sure that we're strong. So it doesn't mean that, hey, we need to cry together once a week. Like, but we do have to come together and go, how are we doing? What can we do better? And so so that's the first thing. The second thing I would say, if he was really pushing back and not wanting to have a meeting with you, is like, if you don't want to spend 30 minutes with me once a week, what exactly are we even doing here? Like, that doesn't even make sense because we're not talking about like we need to have a 3-hour, let's hammer out every single thing related. Because by the way, when you have regular meetings, you don't have to try to tackle 28 things at once. You don't have to like unearth all the resentments and all the things that aren't working. You can take it like one at a time, little bite-sized pieces of this is where we're crushing it as a couple right now. And this is where I could use some more support. And where could you use some more support? And so I literally script them with, these are the questions that you ask each other. And so it's not that scary. But if we don't want to spend 30 minutes together, I think we've got some bigger challenges to
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, for
Very
sure.
true.
For sure. And then one additional question I thought of, how many women who come in your program, how many of their husbands, spouses, partners, whatever, know that they're working with you?
Probably half.
Okay.
I encourage everyone to tell their husbands that they're working with me.
Mhm.
And sometimes they'll Google me and then get really scared,
Yeah.
which is fine. But I encourage them because, first of all, it sends a very necessary wake-up call of like, I'm struggling to the point where I need to invest in this and it's important to me. So you're not doing anything wrong. This isn't a 10 steps to leave your marriage. Like that's not what this is about. It's, can we improve this? Or is this all it's ever going to be? And then we've got some decisions to make. And so you're not doing anything wrong. And if you're going to actually, like, let's say that the marriage could evolve to a new place where it felt really good for you, why would you keep a secret? Like, why would you, like, let me just add on another challenge. Like, hey, I've been keeping the secret from you for a year. No, like, let's just put it out in the open. But I encourage it, but that doesn't mean everybody does it. So probably 50% of the people share it with their spouse. And sometimes the men get involved. Like, they're like, well, can I watch some videos? Can I learn some of these things? And I think that's great. Then they have a common language, right? But what I do tell them is when you learn something new, what we want to do, our immediate reaction is, I know who needs to hear this. He does. And we want, here's what you need to be doing differently so that I can feel better in my marriage. We don't want to do that. But if they're asking, hey, can I watch? Can I learn? Can I grow too? Now they've opened the door. Now they're open to hearing whatever it is that I'm offering, right?
Yeah.
Now they can receive it. So
Yeah, if they're telling their spouse that they need to watch and listen to these things, they're doing the opposite of what you said, which this whole program is about you looking inward, working on yourself, figuring out how you
Right.
can show up differently, not like, oh, you are, the spouse is the full issue and
Yeah.
he needs to change. So,
Well, and think about it. Like, change is hard.
Mhm.
When we were talking about creating habits, giving up sugar, whatever it is, working out, whatever you want to do, build a business. Habits are hard to change. And so that's why we really want them to do it.
Yeah.
We want them to do the hard thing.
Right.
When
Yeah.
ultimately at the end of the day, like in any part of our life, the answer is always us.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have to do the work.
Nobody
Always
is going to
us.
save us. Got to save
Right.
ourselves.
I almost got a tattoo. I haven't gotten it yet. Maybe one day I will. It says it's all me. Like,
Love
it's all
that.
me. Like
Yep.
at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's me.
Yeah. So we talk a lot on this podcast about reclaiming voice and power. A lot of
Mm.
what we like to do is empower women to take control. In our world, that looks financial, but that can be in any aspect of their lives. So, what does that look like? The reclaiming voice and power in the context of a marriage that's misaligned or no longer aligned? And then, how do women begin to take those steps going forward?
This is such an important question. And I'm so glad you asked me this question. Because I think that my brain is going in two different directions right now. In one regard, I don't know if many of your women are in midlife, but it's really common that as our hormones decline, particularly testosterone, as testosterone declines, which it starts to at 35, women will often start losing their voice more and more frequently. And when we have tried to bridge the gap in our marriage or make it better in some way, and it hasn't gone very well, oftentimes what we do is we will give up our voice. We'll get quiet. Well, just why bother trying? It doesn't work anyway. I'll just be quiet and keep the peace. And it's easier to not have the hard conversations. Short term. Long term, it's very destructive. But short term, it's easier to just ignore it, to let it roll off your back, or to carry the resentment about it very quietly so that you can keep the peace in the home. But it creates a lifetime of dysfunction. And so what I would suggest doing differently is getting, like, I think as women, we can do better at communicating more directly. I'll give you an example that I see every single day. Women will go to their husband and they'll usually be teary or emotional, and they'll say, I'm really unhappy. And then I go, what is your husband supposed to do with that? Because most people on the planet don't actually even know how to make themselves happy, but you think your husband is supposed to know how to make you happy. We're not being clear enough. We're not being direct enough. Like, women can get together and we can speak in nuance and we get it. Literally, we have more synapses in the left and right hemispheres of our brains. We communicate to connect with people. Men communicate for a purpose, right? And so they're not into nuances. They're not going to get the subtleties. You have to be direct when you're communicating with men. Here's what I'm challenged with in our marriage. And if we are going to remain strong as a couple together, here's what I need to change between us. Now, here's my ideas on how that change could be created, but I'm open to your ideas as well. That's a more direct conversation. And I think direct is clear. And in the words of Brene Brown, clear is kind. So we can communicate more directly and we will get further. And that will serve us in so many ways. Being direct isn't being bitchy. Sorry. I
Right.
have to think
No.
about whether or not I could say the word.
Absolutely, you can.
You can.
It's just being clear. And when you're
Yeah.
clear, that really is kind to the person on the other side of the table trying to understand what it is that you're talking about and what it is that you need.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice, because I have heard from women in my life that they are nervous about being direct and clear for that fear of coming off, right, as bitchy. I don't want him to think that I'm just bitching or that I'm complaining or that I'm moaning, but I like that idea that clear is kind, right? Just
Yes.
getting clear about how we feel is the better way to go forward
Yes.
than not having the conversations.
And, if it's, I'm not happy, something needs to change, you need to do better, whatever. Like that is sort of naggy, criticizing. It's not productive. So what's productive is here's where I'm struggling. Here's what I need to see if we can change between us in order for me to feel good about our marriage again. And doing it one thing at a time it's not that hard, but I think we tend to want to boil the ocean and we want to solve all the problems in one conversation. And no one can wade their way through all that. It's too much, so, but if you do one thing at a time and you get really clear in advance, like take 3 to 5 minutes to go, okay, what do I really want to accomplish with this conversation? And here's another one. Instead of starting with, we need to talk, we need to talk, the 4 dreaded words that
That always goes over well.
no one wants to be on the end of that. You start with, there's something important I'd like to talk to you about. When is a good time? Because one of the other things that is different between men and women, I love talking about men versus women too, because we're just very different creatures and we have very different brains. So women we're better at multitasking. We can handle 10, 20 things all at once in our heads. Like the kids, I need to go to the store and get their favorite snack and they need to be at soccer practice at 3. And I've got this business meeting at 4. So I need to work all this out. Oh, do I have enough gas? Yeah, I do. We can manage all that. We're a little crazy, but we can manage all that. Men go really deep on one thing at a time. One thing at a time. So if he's in the middle of something, anything, working, conversation, watching the ball game, whatever, and you want to have a conversation about your relationship, now is not a good time because he's really into this other thing. But if you set aside time in advance, great. After dinner, we'll talk about this. Great. Now you've got 100% of his attention. It's called singular focus. I see it every single day with my husband. It's whenever I'm doing 12 things at once and I feel like I'm running circles around him or something. And he's doing that one thing. He's at his computer working. That's what he's doing. And I'm just singular focus. That must be nice to be able to just be present with what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I wish I had it.
But how wonderful that you're aware of that and you keep that in mind, especially if you need to have one of those conversations that may feel dreaded otherwise, that you're, sensitive to that. Difference.
Then I'll get his full undivided attention just at a different time.
Right.
So I set it up in advance.
Yeah. That's awesome. So before we get into our last question, Sharon, we didn't let you know about this ahead of time, but I know you're always reading amazing books because one of the things I loved about your work is you would go, read a bunch and go deep on a bunch of different topics and then kind of bring those different ideas and different learnings together as part of your program, which I just appreciated so much because you saved me countless hours of books that I didn't have to read because I just learned from you. So what have been a couple of your favorite books or things that you've listened to recently that you've, maybe incorporated into your work or would otherwise recommend for our listeners to consider reading or listening to?
Okay. I do love.
I know you do.
I might have to narrow it down. Okay. So my top books, top 3 right now. Ooh, 3. All right. Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Must read. Must read. If you want to know about men, Under Saturn's Shadow by James Hollis. It's a thin little book, but it's fascinating. Brene Brown's Daring Greatly.
So Brene Brown, Daring Greatly.
Yes.
Daring Greatly.
Okay.
That is definitely in the top
Okay.
3.
Okay.
Awesome.
I love Brianna Weiss's work, and she has one that's called like 101 Essays That'll Change Your Life. They're all like 2 pages, so it's easy to do like one a day. I think her work is great. And right now I'm reading an older book by Dr. Christiane Northrup called Goddesses Never Age.
You have our attention.
Yeah, I
I
know.
know, which is all about midlife and how to be vibrant and alive in the second phase of your life.
Ooh,
Yeah. So
love
that's
it.
really fun.
Love it.
Yeah.
That'd be a good gift for us to give some of our clients.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
We work with a lot of women in midlife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Midlife.
Yeah.
Goddesses Never Age. It's a good one. Yeah.
Love that.
I'm enjoying it.
Thank you so much. I can't wait
You know
to
what?
check out
I
some
have
of
one
those.
more.
Oh, yeah.
The Next Conversation. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
No, I've never heard of it.
Fisher? Okay. So I think the guy's name is Harrison Fisher. He's a lawyer. You know, like normally I'm not reading books by lawyers.
Yeah.
Dudes.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
But in the spirit of speaking more directly, his work is fascinating and it's really, really actionable. So if you want to have more direct conversations, that book called The Next Conversation is really pragmatic and helpful.
Okay. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yay.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
So our final question is what we ask every guest who joins us here is, what does living richly mean to you?
So I knew I was going to get asked this question. So I did give it some thought. And I was like, what does it mean? You know, and when I think about money or richly, rich is a bigger experience than just money, but to me, it's about having options, having choices in our lives. And, you know, whether that's the first thing that came to mind for me related to choices is like, do I want to have a busy morning where I just get going and get my day started and start doing the things? Or do I want to have a slow morning, an easy morning? Do I want to build a career in corporate? Do I want to start a business? Like, it's nice to be able to have choices. And likewise, you know, do I want to stay in my marriage and be happy, find happiness in my marriage? Or do I want to end my marriage and find happiness? Because they're both options available to us. And so I think it's about having options for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love
Does that
that.
make-
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. I think about it very, very similarly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, Sharon. Well, this was amazing. It's so good to see your beautiful face again and
See you.
chat with you today. So before we let you go, you have so many things that our listeners and viewers can check out. So where should people look for you? Obviously, you can Google, should I stay in my marriage or go? And you'll find Sharon. But
I'm the stay or go lady.
but otherwise, how can people find you and how can they connect with you?
So I'm really easy to find, and you can go to sharonpope.com. That's my site. But I would recommend you go get my book, and you can get it at stayergobook.com. That's an easy place to go. And by the way, if you prefer to get it on Amazon and all that kind of stuff, you can still do that. It's just under a different name. It's the one behind me. Look, I'm trying to go. When marriage needs an answer. When marriage needs an answer on Amazon or stayergobook.com.
Okay. And we'll make sure to link.
Yeah.
Make sure to link those 2 links in the show notes. So feel free to check those out.
I mean, I've written a bunch of books, but that's the best one. It's the one that's helped the most people. It's the most pragmatic. Like, that's a great starting point.
Okay. Awesome. Well, it was so wonderful to see you again. Thank you so much. This
Yeah.
was such an important episode and an important conversation to have. And we realize that sometimes it's hard, but we have to have those hard conversations and make those hard decisions in life. Because we don't want to be in the comfortable discomfort, right? Like we want all of our listeners and viewers to thrive, and we only get this one precious life
to live. So let's make sure we're making the best of it.
Yeah.
So grateful to be here with you, ladies.
Oh, it's fantastic having you. I mean, I still probably have like 20 other questions I could ask you.
I know.
Okay, we'll come back on.
Yeah, we'll come back on for another episode.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you again next week for another episode. And until then,
Live richly.
thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Friendly reminder that this is for informational purposes only. For additional information, please visit us at www.curoprivatewealth.com. Until next time, live richly.